Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey, Chapter 6. 1. It was on Thursday that I had walked with Mimi, and I did not see her again until Sunday night when we were entertained at supper, although I talked with her by telephone and on Saturday sent her violets. Her time was, she said, much taken up by dressmakers, tailors, milliners. She was to be maid of honor at the Veiled Prophet's ball, that superlative event of the autumn carnival which links a modern city with the light-hearted festivals of past centuries. Each year, the people of St. Louis forget the workaday world and give themselves gaily to the mystical celebration. They decorate their streets with pennants of purple and gold for the great parade. They open their houses for the tide of visitors which sweeps over the threshold of the town, and in splendid jewels and gorgeous gowns they welcome the prophet to the court of honor, where he crowns his queen of love and beauty. I found it hard to reconcile the fact of Mimi's professed poverty with the elaborate wardrobe she was preparing, but Lionel informed me that the distinction conferred on a debutante by her choice as maid of honor becomes a family affair and brings gifts from rich relatives who feel there must be nothing lacking which may contribute to the success of her presentation. Since I could not have Mimi, I settled myself to work, shut myself up in my room at the hotel, and finished the play. I read it to Lionel on Saturday morning, while he lay in bed with his coffee on a tray beside him. "It's great," he said when I finished. "I'm not sure. It all depends on whether we can get our idea over." He lighted a cigarette with nervous fingers. "We've got to get it over, Cherry. I'm desperately hard up for money. I've had such a darned luck lately. Dad can't help me out, and Bernice's father is acting like the heavy villain in a melodrama." He dug his cigarette in a tray to get rid of the ashes. "If he drives me too hard, I'll marry her and come back and say, 'Here we are, give us your blessing.'" "But suppose he shouldn't give it?" "He wouldn't be willing to see Bernice suffer." "Oh, but look here." "Well?" "Wouldn't the whole thing be hard on Bernice?" He did not answer for a moment. Then he gave me a straight glance. "It was she who suggested it." 2. Well, we sent the play off that afternoon to an agent who had promised to do his best for us. Then we went to Bernice's. Miss Barry was having 2 tables of bridge. Bernice and I did not play, but Lionel did, while Bernice and I sat in the window seat of the card room and talked. The scene reminded me of something in Thackeray or some old English print. The women flushed and eager, the men eager but calm, the soft lights on the shining dresses, the painted knave and queen and king on the walls, with their perruques and patches and powder. "I believe Lionel loves cards better than he does me," Bernice said wistfully. "I wanted him to write this afternoon, but he wouldn't." "I'll write with you." She shook her head. "It would be too late by the time I dressed." "And anyhow, you want Lion." "Yes, and that's not saying anything against your charms, Jerry, but your eyes are all for Mimi. Oh, it is every Jack for his Jill, isn't it? And I'm taking the wrong attitude with Lion. I know it, but I don't seem to be able to help it. Somehow I can't play the game with him as I do with other men, yet it might do him good." I felt very sorry for her, and I felt, I'll confess, a bit uncomfortable. I had been bred to reticence, and it seemed to me astounding that Bernice could pour her heart out to me. I knew that she suffered. There were shadows under her eyes, and she fingered nervously a string of pearls which she wore about her neck. They were beautiful pearls, and to break the silence which had fallen upon us, I remarked, "What a charming clasp!" "Oh, of my necklace, isn't it?" She unfastened it to show me. It was a shamrock in emeralds. "My grandmother was Irish, and these came from her. I don't often wear them, but they suit this gown. Lionel likes me in green." "Lionel likes you in anything." "Does he? You're a comfortable person, Jerry." "Am I? Oh, look here, Bernice. You mustn't be downhearted. Lionel can do big things if he is willing to work. He has real talent." "Yet he plays bridge," she said with some bitterness. "I believe he'll buckle down, especially if we'll sell the play. You'll see." "Do you really think he will?" "Yes." Then, plunging in blindly, I said the thing I felt ought to be said. "But you must not marry him, Bernice, until he has made good." "I'll marry him and help him." "I wouldn't if I were you. It isn't wise." Her voice shook. "It isn't easy to do wise things, Jerry. Not when you have always done the things you want to do. Lionel and I haven't been trained for hardness." Well, I had been trained for hardness, yet I wondered if anything could make me give up my dreams of marriage with Mimi. So we sat there, Bernice and I, two young things oppressed by problems which are as old as the ages. And from the walls the simpering queen and king and knave, who for a century had watched people come and go and win and lose, looked down on us with cynical eyes. Lionel lost every rubber. He came over and told us when the game was ended. "I shall have to pawn my jewels," he said, "if this keeps up." But while his tone was light, his eyes were moody. Bernice put a comforting hand on his arm, but though it lay there like a snowflake, he made no sign that he saw it. 3. On Sunday night, for the first time I met Mimi's mother, and from the moment I saw her, I knew that it was war between us. She greeted me pleasantly enough, but there was no real warmth in her manner. She was a slender little woman, so young-looking that it seemed incredible she should have a grown daughter. She was perhaps the same age as my mother, yet there might have been a generation between them. Miss Lebrun's gay air of fashion, the touch of rouge on her cheeks, the glint of her hair, her smooth, fair neck girdled with pearls, these things seemed to divide her by years from that tiny grey ghost which haunted our old house. The little apartment, in spite of its cramped 6 rooms, was most attractive. The furniture was excellent, inherited treasures, and Mimi's colors were evident in the blue of the draperies, the burnished green of old porcelain, the copper of certain bowls and candlesticks. There were little saffron roses in the copper bowls. Andy had, I learned, sent them. But she wore my violets. Andy was there, of course, and while he had little to say to me, his manner had in it nothing of open enmity. When I knew him better, I found that, while his temper was hot and got beyond him at times, he did not, as a rule, fight in the open. I think that, too, in cold blood he refused to look upon me as a rival. His pride would not admit that Mimi's interest in me could match her interest in himself. At supper, I sat beside Mimi. It was a most informal meal. Lionel presided at one chafing dish, and Miss Lebrun at the other. It interested me to see Lionel's deftness. I had never been among men who counted the making of a rarebit a fine art. I had melted cheese for more than once in my mother's kitchen, and had toasted the bread over the glowing coals. The contrast between the two backgrounds came to me as I sat there in the tight little rooms with their effect of luxury, and I wondered if there wasn't something to be said for the beauty of that low white kitchen, which pretended to be nothing, but which was really so much. Yet with Mimi beside me, I had little time for memories. She told me of her adventures since the morning we had walked together. "I am worn to a frazzle, Cherry. I've had to stand for hours trying on, but my things are beautiful." "You are beautiful," I told her. "You'd be lovely in calico." She shivered. "I shouldn't. I need silky things, Cherry, and shiny, sparkly things, and flippity-flopping trains. You ought to see my maid of honor dress." "Well, show it to me," I said promptly. "Shall I?" She considered it a moment, then raised her voice to command the attention of the others. "I am going to show you my new gowns," she proclaimed. "Mimi," her mother protested, "you are not." "Yes, I am. Everybody who wants to see them, hold up their hands." All the hands went up. There was much laughter. Mimi made them a little bow. "It was Cherry's idea. He has never seen a maid of honor gown, and I want to dazzle him." Andy darkened, and Miss Lebrun's swift glance crossed the table like the flash of a sword. "Mimi," she emphasized, "everything is in boxes or wrapped up in sheets." "Everything will be out of boxes and unwrapped from sheets in a minute, Mother." She pressed all of the men into service and formed us into a procession from the living room to her own room, and we came back with fragrant silk and armfuls, making 6 trips before all of the boxes were emptied. Being mere man, how am I to describe what followed? The lovely robes heaped on chairs and tables, Mimi in the midst of them, holding this one up so that we might see the lines of it, arraying herself in splendid cloaks and capes, spreading out the train of the maid of honor dress, pearl-embroidered, fur-edged. Andy's eyes on her, gloating. Miss Lebrun smiling, but watchful and intent. For Mimi kept saying, "Do you like this, Cherry?" And "This is a design of silver peacock feathers, Cherry." And "The ermine on this cape was Mother's, Cherry. She wore it when she was Queen of Love and Beauty over 20 years ago." Yet in spite of her friendliness, I was oppressed by it all. It seemed to me that Mimi, the child Mimi, was being smothered in velvet and fur and weighed down by heavy embroideries of gold and silver and pearl, that all of this extravagance was the chain which bound her to a life of luxury, and which would drag her towards marriage with someone who could wrap her always in purple and fine linen, and I, impotent to break that chain, must see her torn away from me. Perhaps my face showed something of what I felt, for while young Sylvester, in gorgeous cloak and feathered hat, amid the laughter of the crowd, was giving an imitation of Mimi, making her first bow to society, she left the center of the stage and came and sat beside me. "You are as solemn as an old owl, Jerry. What's the matter?" "I'm not used to such grandness. It makes me feel miles away from you." Her voice was sharp. She was tired, excited. "You know I am not miles away from you, but I shall be if you don't want me to enjoy pretty things." "I do want you to enjoy them." "No, you don't. I'm afraid you are a prig, Jerry, and a Puritan." If she had struck me in the face, she could not have more astounded me. I was too inexperienced in the ways of women to understand that the exacting and difficult days just past had brought her a state of mind which made her actually hysterical. She was hurt, too, to the heart by my lack of response to her mood. "Why shouldn't you enjoy things with me?" she went on rapidly. "This is my life, and I love it. I hate poverty and cheap clothes." Sylvester was calling her, and whirling away from me, she was again the center of the crowd. Yet I was aware presently that the jest of the thing was ended for her, and at last she threw up her hands in a little gesture of despair. "Isn't everybody tired of me? I know I'm tired of myself. Let's do something else." Her mother exclaimed, "Not with everything in such confusion, Mimi." "I adore confusion, Mother." "But Mimi—" "Oh, well, I'll let the boys work for us. They can put everything back in the boxes." "I shan't work," Sylvester declared, "unless I know what the prize will be." They gathered around her, Andy and Lionel, Styles and Sylvester, with the other youths who made up the crowd. Mimi was sitting on the arm of a carved mahogany sofa, swinging a slippered foot, a shining lovely figure with her burnished blue dress and red gold hair. She glanced across at me, glanced away. I had not moved from my seat. She spoke in a high, hurried tone. "I'll give a kiss to the one who does the best work, and Jerry shall be one of the judges, and Catherine, and Bernice." In the midst of a roar of laughter, I said, "I shall not be a judge. I shall compete." I laughed with them. I flung it off lightly. None of them should know my awful sense of disillusionment. It was as if the blessed damozel had bartered her favors. We worked feverishly, all of us. I knew that absolutely I had the best chance of winning. Not for nothing were all the years when my mother had trained me in orderly habits. I had always brushed my own clothes and folded them. I had helped her with the putting away of winter things and the getting out of the summer ones. And these young Sybarites had had no training, especially Andy. His man had done things for him. He worked awkwardly, ineffectively, while I packed boxes with the regularity of a machine. And as I packed, I wondered what I should do with the prize when I had won it. Alice Amidon was the third judge, and I knew she liked me. So did Catherine and Bernice, and they were all good sports. Their verdict would, I knew, be a fair one. While the contest was on, Mimi sat on the arm of the sofa, swinging her foot. I know now that she was heartily sorry for the thing she had done, but there was no sign of it on her smiling countenance. It seemed to me dreadful that she could sit there and smile. At last the boxes were filled. The judges inspected them, were given slips of paper on which they wrote their decisions, handed them to Mimi. She read them, lifted her head and looked at me. "Jerry wins," she said. I don't know what she expected. I don't know what any of them expected. Some banal scene, no doubt, in which she paid her debt. But I stood there in the middle of the floor, laughing a little, carrying it off. My sense of drama had come to my aid. I felt like a man in a play. "This is not the time or the place," I told her. "I want your IOU, Mimi." I picked up a pencil and a slip of paper, which one of the judges had discarded. "Write on this, 'I promise to pay on demand.'" Her hand, when she took the pencil, was cold, but she too carried it off. She scribbled for a moment, folded the paper, and handed it back to me. I opened it, read it, folded it again, and with apparent calmness put it in my pocket. But my blood was racing madly, for this was what she had written. "Oh, Jerry, I'm such a little fool, and you are such a darling. 4. That was always the charm of Mimi, the delicious unexpectedness of her. Her moments of surrender made up for all the tempests which preceded them. A touch of arrogance was her inheritance. A loving heart was her endowment. The two warred with each other endlessly. I think if she had been left to herself, she would never have hidden her heart from me. But her mother's ambition, her mother's influence swayed her. I will not say that her mother was all to blame. Mimi, like a cat which has always had a warm hearth, loved luxury. And she had been made to feel that her beauty was a marketable thing, that it must bring her not only prince but a kingdom. Indeed, any prince might do. It was the kingdom which counted. Looking back upon it, I know it was a devastating thing that she should have been thus trained. And whatever regrets I may have for what came after, I am sure that in a sense I saved her. As the days went on, I became more and more convinced that she cared for me. Yet she would promise nothing. I can't marry you, Cherry. I can't. Let's live for today and not look ahead. Well, we lived for the day. I saw her everywhere. I danced with her, rode with her, talked in terms of burning eloquence. With it all, however, I never claimed the kiss that I had won. We never spoke of it. It was a lovely secret which lay between us. Thanks to my friendship for Mimi and for Lionel, I was invited everywhere. I found myself swept on by a tumultuous tide. Staking everything on the success of the play, I refused to look my financial future in the face. From morning to night I was whirled from one excitement to another, gaily, continuously. The life of my boyhood receded more and more into the background. The tragic months of the summer, when I had watched my mother die, might never have been. Memories of Uncle Jerry's arguments beat against my brain. Why should I, too, not have my cake and eat it? "And so," said Styles Sanderson to me one day, "you are liking Vanity Fair?" "It's great. What are you writing?" "We are waiting to hear from the play. If it is a success, Lionel and I will do more of them." "Don't wait. Go shut yourself in a tall tower and show the people what you can do." But I had no wish for a tall tower. I wanted this wide, fair plain. I more than liked Vanity Fair. It was picturesque, prodigal, and Mimi was a part of it. That was enough for me. There was this to be said for Mimi. If she would not marry me, she would have no other. In vain her mother wept over her morning chocolate. "I am sorry, dearest," Mimi told her, "but I don't want to get married." "You can't know what you are throwing away. Andy won't wait forever." "I don't want him to wait." "But he can give you everything." "I should have to take him with everything, and he isn't worth it." "But, oh, you can't be so foolish, Mimi. If you don't think of yourself, you might think of me. I have so many cares. I can't sleep nights." Mimi, repeating this conversation to me, remarked, "She hates to be poor. You see, she has never been until now." It was late on the night of the Veiled Prophet's ball that Miss Lebrun came out into the open and challenged me. I had been thrilled by the mystical, spectacular ceremony, the beauty of the ladies of the court, the splendor of their gowns, the dazzling display of jewels. It had seemed to me marvelous that these well-groomed men and gracious women could doff so easily their sophistication and enter wholeheartedly into the spirit of fun and folly. Mimi looked like an angel. or a princess, or a fairy queen. Not even the chosen queen could compare with her. And as I had watched her dazzling progress on her way to do homage to the court, I had wondered how I ever dared lift my eyes to her. She carried a fan of peacock feathers, the one which had been painted in the portrait, and I heard a woman behind me say, "Mimi Lebrun must want bad luck. I wouldn't wear peacock feathers for anything in the world." "I'm not superstitious," was the cold response. "It means death, my dear, or some dreadful trouble. Or you may think I'm silly, but I had an old black mummy." They passed on, and I smiled to myself. Death and Mimi? The thing was preposterous. She was as brilliantly alive as a spring morning, and as beautiful. I made my way through the crowd. The queen had been crowned, and in a few moments there would be dancing. I wanted to get as soon as possible to Mimi. I had been promised a dance. Mrs. Lebrun sat with a group of matrons, many of whom, like herself, had been former queens. I spoke to her, and to my surprise she rose and drew me away from the others. "I want to talk to you a bit, Jerry." She was sparkling, secure, dangerous. "About Mimi." I was at once on guard, but I said with an effect of composure, "Not any of them could hold a candle to her, could they? She should have been the queen." "She might have been, had her grandfather lived." "She should have been anyhow." She did not continue the theme. She had other things on her mind. Her voice was clear, incisive, as she said, "Jerry, you mustn't fall in love with her." "I have already fallen in love." "You know, of course, that she can't marry you." "I know that whether I marry her or not, my life is at her feet." She laughed lightly. "Surely you don't believe that any man is at any woman's feet for life?" "I don't know about other men. I know myself." She stopped, and we stood there with that careless crowd surging about us. Yet we might have been marooned on an island in an empty sea for all that anyone else mattered. "It isn't quite fair to Mimi, Jerry, for you to talk high romance when you can't talk marriage." "I would talk marriage if she would listen." "But you haven't anything to marry on." "I have my allowance from my Uncle Jerry, and I am his heir." I flung the statement at her as I had flung it at Lionel in college. I felt that it might modify her attitude, and in a sense it did. "Is he very rich?" she demanded. "He hasn't millions, if you mean that," I admitted, "but there would be enough." "Enough for what? Not for Mimi's future, and anyhow it may be years before you inherit. Don't you see how impossible it is, Jerry? Poverty is dreadful. I wouldn't have Mimi poor." There was an almost hysterical fierceness in her way of saying it, yet she kept her voice to a low key. "If her father had not married again, we should have lived in his house, have had everything. He thought he was in love." She swept the possibility away with a scornful gesture. "And you think you are in love? Men are like that. They want what they want. But you aren't thinking of Mimi's happiness, only of your own. Don't you call that a bit selfish, Jerry?" Well, it was natural for a mother to fight for her young. She was like a sleek and shining cat defeating her kitten. "I won't have her winter spoiled by you, Jerry. It is the most important winter of her life. Yet you've caught her fancy. Such things never last with her. You are something new, different. That's all there is to it." "There is more to it than that," I said. "There is fate and our faith in ourselves." The words were an echo of the things my father had often said to me. Only he would have put it faith in God and in ourselves. but in neither case would Miss Lebrun have understood. She simply stared and said in a level voice, "People who live in the clouds, Jerry, are sure to get hurt. I'm sorry." The music was sweeping in great waves over us. The dancing had begun. A distinguished and grey-haired man came to claim Miss Lebrun. She did not present me to him. She left me high and dry on the shores of her displeasure. 5. The next morning I had a letter from Mimi. She sent it by messenger, and I opened it with a premonition of disaster. "Mother has made me promise not to see so much of you, Jerry. She says it can't come to anything, and that it is simply unsettling me. And perhaps she's right, I don't know. Anyhow, she came into my room last night and begged me to give you up. I wouldn't promise that I wouldn't see you at all, but I agreed not to ask you to come here and not to make engagements with you. I shall miss our walks together, Jerry, and our talks. But perhaps I'm not all the wonderful things you say I am. If I were really the woman of your dreams, I would think the world well lost, wouldn't I? And I don't. So you are not to think of me as Juliet on a balcony, or that I'd cut myself up in little stars. I am like the young women in the nursery rhyme, just ribbons and laces, and my face is my fortune, Jerry. This isn't the kind of letter Mother expects me to write, but it is the best I can do. I'm not the heroine of a play. I am not the heroine of anything. I am awfully human, though you won't believe it. It has been wonderful to have you for a friend. It will always be wonderful to remember. And of course this isn't goodbye forever, like Toasty's song. Only you mustn't hope any more, and I mustn't dream, and that's all there is to it. It won't be the same, but it will be something." I spoiled many sheets of paper before I answered her, so I can reproduce what I wrote in part. I filed it away with her note, and the yellow pages seem even now to flame with a living fire. You are Juliet on a balcony. You are the blessed Demoiselle bending down. You are Beatrice to be worshipped. You are Rachel to be waited for. If I do not see you, you will still be in my heart. Remember that, Mimi. There has never been any other in my life. There will never be. If the play succeeds, I shall have something to offer you. But whether it succeeds or not, I shall work for you, wait for the perfect moment when I can call you mine. High flown. Well, call it that if you wish. But I was sincere. As a boy, I had thought in terms of chivalry. I had been fed on King Arthur and his Round Table knights. I had copied in my notebook such things as this: a glorious company, the flower of men, to serve as a model for the mighty world, and be the fair beginning of a time. To love one maid only, cleave to her, and worship her by years of noble deeds, until they won her. I had read my Bible, and of Jacob and his 7 years. I had read Ruskin and his challenge to the youth of his day to serve like Jacob. You see, my ideals of womanhood had been formed by my father, and they had been modified very little even by my adoration of Uncle Jerry and his swashbuckling methods, or by contact with my mates at college, who refused to put femininity on a pedestal, and who held that the girls with whom they danced and flirted and to whom they made love had as many human faults and frailties as themselves. So in a passion of devotion I dispatched my letter, and it was not until several days had passed without a glimpse of Mimi that I began to feel the reaction. I had a sort of boyish dignity, of pride if you will, which made me refuse to put myself in her way when she had forbidden it. But I was filled with an intolerable ache for her. For the first time in my life, I could not square my optimism with the thing which had happened to me. In desperate despair, I turned to my work. I shut myself up in my room and wrote. I refused invitations. It seemed to me that if I saw Mimi, I should fall on my knees and beg her to give me hope. Yet I would not ask again for what she would not give, and always I waited for the moment when the acceptance of the play would make it possible for me to lay my laurels at my lady's feet. Then, suddenly, like a crash of thunder from a clear sky, or the sickening swing of an earthquake on a golden day, a letter came from our agent. He was sorry, he said, but a reading of the manuscript had convinced him that it would have no chance whatever with producers, and he did not feel justified in offering it to them. It had merits, but it showed plainly our lack of technical knowledge of the stage, and he was returning it. End of chapter 6. From the novel Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey.